Khezu is a flying wyvern introduced in the very first Monster Hunter game. He's pale, and has a long neck he can use to attack with. Something curious about Khezu is that he doesn't have any eyes, and therefore he cannot see. To reflect this, he does not have any battle music, it's just silence, with the exception of his roar and other sound effects. Before we proceed, a special thank you to my patrons on Patreon for making this video possible. Khezu has a few physical attacks. He can bite while stretching his neck, he can swing his tail around, dash at you, or leap from a distance. Sometimes he'll jump onto the ceiling and cling there, and will try and jump down on you. Khezu has lightning abilities. He can create an electric field, or he can send thunderbolts at you that cause paralysis. These attacks are generally the most dangerous parts of Khezu. He's quick to initiate the electric field, so you have little time to back away, and the paralysis projectiles split into 3, making them hard to dodge. When enraged, his projectiles split into 5, and he can leap while covered in the electric field. These specific additions were added in Freedom 2 and Unite. It is also worth mentioning that Khezu likes to scream. Khezu has a subspecies, the red Khezu. He is different from the standard Khezu in that he has an extra physical attack where he swings his neck around. Khezu was not in Monster Hunter Rise. This game had a mostly original cast of monsters, although some had similarities to monsters from previous games. In this case, Gigginox feels like a stand-in for Khezu, so let's discuss him. Gigginox is a flying wyvern introduced in Monster Hunter Rise. Like Khezu, he lives primarily in cold regions, favouring dark caves in particular. While Khezu has the body structure of a standard flying wyvern, Gigginox moves similarly to Tigrex or Nagakuga, with his wings planted on the ground most of the time, and he is also a lot flatter. The area music plays for him as well. While he's pale like Khezu, Gigginox's underside is red. He also glows in the dark, and his tail resembles his head. While Gigginox also doesn't have eyes, he can still sense prey by their heat signatures. Gigginox can perform a double bite attack where he stretches his neck from side to side. He can charge, body slam, as well as leap across the arena. He has little babies called Giggis that spawn from large globules called Gigisacs. Giggis will try and latch onto you and drain your health, and Gigginox can create more by making Gigisacs during combat. He also has the ability to poison you, either by spitting a projectile that festers on the ground, creating a wave underneath him, or creating a glob, similar to how he makes his Gigisacs. Gigginox can also climb on walls as well as the ceiling and attack from there, either by jumping down or throwing poison blobs at you. When he becomes enraged, his skin darkens and he becomes much faster. He also has a pin attack he unleashes from the ceiling, where he stretches to the floor and attacks you from there. He returns for portable third. High rank for Monster Hunter Rise isn't officially available anymore, so he can't be fought there, but in that game and this one, his poison becomes enhanced, dealing extra damage. Gigginox gains a subspecies in this game, the Baleful Gigginox. This one is more yellow in colour, with a purple underside, and he uses paralysis instead of poison. While hanging onto the ceiling, Baleful can throw paralysis balls at you. Similarly to Khezu, he can not only launch 3 at once while on the ground, but he can also create a field that paralyzes everyone around him. He can't lay Gigisacs, instead laying paralysis eggs that explode. He can use his tail to attack the same way as his head, swinging it around. Baleful turns bright red when enraged, and he has a different pin attack where he holds you on the floor and sucks you in from there. It's worth mentioning that breaking Baleful's head will reduce his paralysis balls to standard thunder. In 3 Ultimate, Gigginox gains the ability to double bite with his tail. In addition to this, he can place a Gigisac on his back which passively spawns them. It can be broken by dealing enough damage. Baleful can do the same, although his is a paralysis egg that paralyzes you if you don't destroy it. If you ignore defunct mobile spin-offs, Gigginox is exclusive to the 3rd generation games, and he has not returned for future ones. He has also never been in the same game as Khezu. Speaking of, Khezu returned to Monster Hunter 4 along with the red Khezu. In this game, he can stretch his neck out further in a long-range bite attack. When he performs his dash attack, he can now coat himself with electricity for additional damage. Sometimes, when Khezu unleashes his electricity field, he quickly follows up with a brief blast. He can now also climb on walls, where he will either jump off, bite, or unleash an electricity field. When on the ceiling, he will sometimes drip liquid that stuns you, as well as bite from above. It's also worth mentioning Khezu's projectiles split into 3 rather than 5. He also has the ability to throw paralysis balls at you. Red Khezu has the ability to do this on the ground. In G rank, Khezu can drop paralysis fields from the ceiling. His second electricity field attack is expanded massively, and he has a brand new pin attack that's pretty horrifying. Red Khezu has the ability to stretch his neck while sniffing around, and he can throw paralysis balls behind him. Overall, these are the only 2 changes he gets, and this is the last we've seen of this subspecies as of the making of this video. Khezu was in Generations as well, identical to how he was in 4 and 4 Ultimate. He skipped World, but later returned to Rise. I would really like to take a moment to discuss just how uncomfortably detailed he is. You can really see the sliminess of his skin, the throbbing of his veins beneath it. You can hear the squelching of his footsteps. It's just wonderful design, truly horrifying. In Rise, Khezu is mostly the same as he is in 4, although when enraged, he can spit his lightning projectiles twice in a row quickly. In Sunbreak, he can once again spit 5 projectiles at once. He can also drag his neck across the floor and sling volleys of lightning balls at you, sometimes one after the other. Khezu is interesting. He's supposed to be pretty creepy, and as a monster I guess he does that well. His sound design is good, and I think his lack of eyes sells the creepiness well. When I first played the series, I found Khezu pretty difficult, namely because the electric field would always catch me off guard. It's a pretty good way of teaching players that they should never be too close to a monster's personal space, and that they should always be ready to back away. Red Khezu feels underutilized. Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate gave a lot of first and second generation subspecies their best changes yet, but Red more or less gets one different attack. It doesn't really change up the fight much, nor does it make him that much harder. I guess he's supposed to be fairly simple, but it's a little bit disappointing. Gigginox is very interesting. I love how his design is kind of supposed to be symmetrical, where at a glance, it's unclear which side is his head. The way he changes colour when enraged, the way he glows in the dark, and his maneuverability on the walls and ceiling are all things that would be really cool to see updated in a new game. They could really do a lot with this monster, and it's a shame he's stuck in the 3rd generation. I also like the baleful Gigginox. He feels different enough from the standard version with his own unique traits, and I love a monster that rewards you for breaking his parts. Some people dislike Khezu, believing Gigginox to be a far better substitute. I believe they both kind of fill the same niche, although I find Gigginox to be much creepier, especially in Monster Hunter Tri's dark caves. It would be nice to see him in a game instead of Khezu for once. So which do you prefer, Gigginox or Khezu? Do you find their subspecies to be enjoyable? What improvements would you give to them? Let me know in the comments. Once again, a special thank you to my patrons for making this video possible. If you donate, you can get early access to videos in advance, as well as get credited at the end of videos. Remember to like and subscribe, and have a good day.